Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the What's Up Wednesday Video Game Collections in Libraries Part 3, Collection Maintenance, Circulating Consoles, Wraparound Services, and Digital Games webinar with Chris Baker, Jenna Giles, and Jamie Hine. My name is George Bergstrom, and I'm the Southern Regional Coordinator here at the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I'll be the question moderator for today. This webinar is being co-sponsored by the American Library Association's Games and Gaming Roundtable. I'd like to start off the webinar with a few quick announcements. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. The session is 1 hour, so you can receive one LEU for today. If you're watching the archived recording of this webinar, the instructions on how to obtain your LEU are available in the video's description on YouTube. Or you can find those instructions on the Indiana State Library's continuing education site under the LEU policies. I will now turn it over to Chris, Jamie, and Jenna.
Thank you so much, George, Lisa, the Indiana State Library for hosting us now the third time around, and for the ALA Games and Gaming Roundtable for co-sponsoring this. Huge thanks, of course, to my inimitable co-presenters, Jamie and Jenna, who are rock stars in the games collection development world. And thank you to everybody here who is attending. We are a mighty community of practice. Those of us who love games and libraries and appreciate and have the insight and the foresight to be able to see that it's an important thing that we really need to be focusing on federally, nationally, when it comes to our libraries. And so thank you for being here, and please help us share this information out, and go be experts in your own necks of the woods, and create your own pockets of games collection development experts in your regions. So as George mentioned, I just want to give a quick overview of who we are as presenters. My name is Chris Baker. I'm a public library consultant and games and learning consultant on the library services team of the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, which is a super mouthful, but essentially that's our state education agency, and I work in those roles on our state education agency's library services team. We, of course, offer consultation and services to our 380 plus member libraries in Wisconsin. And I'll pass it over to Jenna to introduce herself.
Hello, I am Jenna Gilles. I'm the Youth Services Associate at the Chippewa Falls Public Library, so I plan all of the teen programming. I'm in charge of the YA and video game collections, and then I also help with other children's programs and services and stuff like that.
And I'm Jamie Hine. I'm the library director at Clintonville Public Library, where I oversee our policy, staff, collection development, and facilities.
I also just want to highlight, I just love your shirt, Jamie. I'm seeing this for the first time. That is an awesome shirt. I want that to be preserved in this webinar. That shirt is awesome. So everybody can see my screen okay? Just want me to see a thumbs up. Sounds good? Okay, great. I see nodding. So if you haven't seen these yet, I would highly recommend everybody go check out parts 1 and 2 of this series. Parts 1, we focus on the why, what, and how of selection and acquisition. Essentially, what are the best practices that you might want to consider in terms of deciding upon what types of games to put in your library space, and how do you actually go and acquire those games to put in your library space. Part 2 focused more on the kind of librarianizing of these collections, right? Labeling, tagging, deciding upon where to locate them in your library, how to deal with maybe some circulation procedures, both with your staff as well as patrons, and other best practices to consider, especially as related to maybe things like rating systems, which is a big thing that the ALA has awesome documentation that librarians can read to consider when navigating these conversations with your communities. So I'd recommend everybody go check out those if you want to get in a really good place to be set up for today, which is where we're going to be covering these kind of 4 core issues that are things you might want to consider after you've got those games in your library space and they're checking out. Great, you're happy. Well, what do you do next, right? Well, today we're going to cover some collection maintenance best practices. Both Jamie and Jenna have excellent recommendations for how you might want to keep your collections fresh. Circulating consoles is another way to really reinvigorate your collection and offer people more opportunities to use those video games. Of course, you can also do things like drop-in gaming and gaming programs, what we might call wraparound services that also add value-added components to your gaming collection. And then finally, I'm going to let Jamie and Jenna really do parts 1, 2, and 3 of this. I'm going to be kind of taking up the rear as the caboose to talk about digital games and what does that mean for libraries? Maybe a little bit of an uncertain future of offering video game collections in libraries as we stand right now, and the work that's currently being done and what we need to do to make sure we get to a place that will be a really accessible space for games and libraries looking to 5, 10, 15 years beyond this. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Jenna.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Chris. So we are going to cover a lot of ground today. Make sure to put your questions in the chat at the end, and you're also welcome to reach out via email for clarification or for more ideas and details from the presentation. We'll share our email at the end. So here in Chippewa, we have a medium-ish sized collection and growing. We currently have 116 different video games, and each one was checked out last year 2 to 20 times. So we do not currently have a separate weeding policy per se for our video games due to this consistent use. They're just going out so much, we don't need to pay attention very much to that. But we do withdraw items from the catalog when items are lost or damaged, which rarely happens, or if they're older discs, most frequently are Wii discs, when they're reported unplayable. So I do keep a loose running list of which Wii games have been reported unplayable and or have been resurfaced. We don't have a way to check Wii discs in the building, and none of my coworkers have a console at their homes. So if multiple patrons in a row tell us they couldn't play the game and I've resurfaced it, then I just go ahead and withdraw the game. And Jamie's later going to touch on resurfacing as well. However, when a patron reports an issue with a disc or a cartridge, most often, in my experience, it has been user error or a connectivity issue. Except the Wii, we do have ways to check everything else, either in the building or I send it home with somebody else and they can check for me. So thinking ahead, because like I said, our collection is growing, we will have to come up with a more specific policy based on our space needs, age of the items, when the items were last checked out, and their total checkouts. We do charge for lost, missing, and damaged cases, discs, and cartridges. And if there was an insert and that's been damaged or is missing upon return back to the library, then we kind of play it by ear based on if we can get it from someplace else or if it absolutely was necessary for the game to have. And I'm gonna turn it over to Jamie.
Okay. We don't really have a weeding policy either here in Clintonville or a weeding threshold for video games. For the most part, according to my technical services librarian who does all of our weeding, they kind of weed themselves. That could just be based on usage, damage, lost, never brought back, or just platform obsolescence, where if it gets damaged and it's from something real old, probably not going to be able to find it. If I would put together kind of a weeding threshold, I would look at what are the current consoles, which at this point in time is the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series X, Switch 1, and next week Switch 2. Probably lump those together, especially since Switch 1 is still quite popular. Keep those as much as possible. Those are games that fortunately you should be able to find again if worst comes that you need to repurchase. Anything older than that, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Wii U on down, kind of weed it based on number of years since last checkout. And if it's your shelving area is kind of small, take that into consideration, maybe shave off a few years or something like that. For testing discs, we have a Wii and Xbox 360 and a Switch in-house here. So we use those to test things if things are funky. Otherwise, I bring it home and test on one of my consoles at home. Next slide, please. And resurfacing discs. So I put a handy dandy chart for my staff in terms of what discs are considered what in terms of like DVDs versus Blu-rays, which is kind of listed there with Wii and Xbox 360 are DVDs, and then Wii U, Xbox One/Series, PS3, 4, and 5 are all Blu-rays, just so that they're aware of that, because that does kind of affect how you resurface things. DVDs can be resurfaced many times. Blu-rays, not so much. They don't have the layers. It's usually more of a very light surface clean for them. For us here in Clintonville, we use a Elm USA pay-as-you-go machine, or it's a Eco Pro 2, just kind of this small thing pictured here. And we basically pay $25 a month to be able to resurface discs. It goes off of time. Every 30 seconds is like a soft clean, and then like 2 minutes is more of a deeper clean. And each month I take a picture to get a new bill for how much usage we had in that month. So I try to keep it within the 100 minutes, I think is what is considered $25, so that we're using that. Positive with this is that the machine, if it gets gummed up, you just have to ship it to them, pay for that shipping, and then there's no parts fees for labor or parts for that, which is really nice. Which takes out the hassle of it gumming up from time to time. Downside, obviously, you're on the hook for $25 a month each month, which kind of sucks, but for us, it's worked quite well. From my experience, and Jenna kind of mentioned this as well, a lot of time resurfacing isn't the solution. It's the player, and this is kind of the same for video games as well as movies, that sometimes you can have a real cheap player that will play anything, and then you'll have something fancy and the slightest like scratch will set it off and be like, nope, can't play this sort of thing. So let it run a few times before using resurfacing as your solution. And I will pass it back to Jenna.
Thank you. I'm going to cover circulating consoles in the next little bit here. There are many pros to providing consoles for your patrons. Obviously, before deciding, you would need to balance these pros with your budget, with your staffing, your shelving and space, and your community needs. So one of the core functions of the library is to bridge that information and literacy access divide. A huge part of this is technological and economical. Circulating consoles or having them for use in the library, which we'll go over more in a little bit, can greatly and positively impact anyone of any age who may not have the option to play video games or have access to tech in other places and spaces. We try to fill our shelves with materials that appeal to as many interests as possible. We have play areas, we have online databases, we have puzzle tables, we have book clubs. We offer so many great things, so why not video game consoles too? If you caught our previous webinars, you'll remember the very high percentage of the population that regularly plays video games. So the people are out there and we can reach them when we have consoles. Another benefit is patrons can also test things out before purchasing them. An educated decision is a good one, and they would be very grateful. We can also support our local game stores and collaborate with them by purchasing from them or working together with them. Video game collections are also a really great conversation starter and relationship builder. It can allow new and old friends to hang out, to catch up on the latest games, and so much more. And when you've got consoles, that just bumps it up even more. You can have your consoles for patrons and for library use. Plan ahead and have game nights. And we'll cover programming in a little bit here. Also, word will get around about your video game collection, trust me. And if you have consoles, just imagine the word getting around about that. And when new patrons come in to check out your new consoles, hopefully they'll also discover and make use of your many great resources and services as well. Next slide, please. So as we all know, there's really no one size fits all when circulating equipment. This is especially true for consoles. So I recently spent a fair amount of time researching how other libraries handle video game consoles in their collections, because this is something I've been wanting to provide for a while now. So based on the websites I viewed and the librarians I spoke with and emailed with, there are a few topics and questions that repeatedly came up. So these are things that you can consider yourself if you have not already. As always, each library handles each thing a little differently based on their staff, their space, their shelving, their budget, whole other slew of items. So basically, will the consoles go in our library of things, in our circulating kits, or some other collection that we have? If it's not circulating, but rather an in-house use only item, do they have to leave their ID with you? Do they have to leave their library card at the desk? Does it get checked out on their card? Do we have time limits? Will we enforce an age limit? Do we have patrons sign a tech use policy, and what would that include? And then also, what issues do we want to plan for and prepare for? What have we had in the past that we want to think about when it comes to consoles? So some of these can include patrons or even staff may not know how to use or troubleshoot the device. So how can we set them up for a positive experience? In the links at the very end of our presentation, I've got a website linked there that includes video tutorials, which I think is amazing. If you have in-house use devices, they can cause noise or different behavior issues. How can we adjust our building space or the kit to limit this and prevent this? How can we provide additional reminders and training for staff, especially if they're new, about check-in and check-out procedures so nothing is amiss with the console or the kit? And then also, what happens if there are missing pieces, damaged items? Are we going to have extra things like chargers on hand just in case if something goes awry? And what are we going to do if a patron doesn't return something or doesn't want to pay for something that's missing or damaged? So after all some of that doom and gloom sounding stuff, I want to definitely say that most librarians that I talked with and emailed with said that their issues were really few and far between, and most often they were easily solvable with adjusting something in the kit, training staff a little better, putting something in their tech use policy, or being proactive in some way. If you're concerned about how to budget for video game consoles and their maintenance and upkeep, consider searching for community and foundation grants. You can ask your friends, which is what I did, your local game stores or other businesses for funding assistance, or maybe you can collaborate or work together with other libraries as well. The last few links are for you to view at your leisure. They go over the history and the timeline of video game consoles and emulators. I am not a gamer, so I try and read as much as I possibly can. And then also, if you've got somebody who comes in that might want to donate a console and if you've never heard of it before, these links can help you out and help you make your choice. So I'm now going to have Jamie speak briefly about the differences from emulators and consoles, because that's still over my head and he can explain that a lot better than me.
Obviously we've seen sort of all-in-one sort of console edition things, kind of like the picture on the left are the NES Classic Edition, and there's a lot of other different ones by Nintendo, by Sega. There's a lot of Atari ones out there where it's just like a controller that then plugs into your TV and has access to a variety of Atari games and stuff like that. The thing on the right is something that you may find at random stores or places. I think this was bought in a mall at some point in time. And it's kind of a legally dubious sort of thing. It's trying to parade itself as this thing on the left, but oh man, it's got over 600 games, but it's a lot of crap. And if there is anything decent, it's probably legally dubious as to why they have it on that device. There's probably some weird loophole that they go through. So if you're looking to, circulate something like this, obviously the thing on the left is not something you're going to be able to easily purchase, but something to that sort of degree, something that's official from Nintendo or Atari or stuff like that, circulate those things. Things on the right, don't do that. Besides just the fact that like the product on the right is going to be probably laggy in terms of controls. Picture quality is not going to be great. It's just, yeah, it really fills a real sketchy sort of spot in this world. And yeah, you're probably better off if you're looking to circulate, use the things on the left. So we'll send it back to Jenna then.
Thank you. So after everything I talked about, all the questions that we've got, I ruminated, I spoke with my director, with my coworkers about how we want to move forward. And we decided to not circulate consoles due to security issues and plus the lack of shelving space in our library of things case. There just isn't room right now for that, and we don't really have any other place to put them. But we have discussed it multiple times, and hopefully sooner than later we'll be able to offer something. For now, we have compromised with an in-house Switch Lite kit. So not an actual Switch, but a Switch Lite. It does play all of the regular Switch games. And I used Friends of the Library money to purchase that last year. We did decide to have patrons sign a tech use policy before they can check out the kit. It is slightly lengthy. but they only have to read and sign it the first time, and then a copy of it is just kept right in the box, right with the kit. Later, come on back and you can view this tech use policy to see everything we decided to include. And I also have a few more examples at the links in the end. So here at Chippewa, all ages can borrow the kit as long as they have a library card in good standing. If a kid comes up and wants to borrow it and they don't have a card, their adult will have to check it out for them. We do not have a set time limit on the kit, but we do have it on the policy that if another patron comes in and they want to use it, then we'll ask the first person to wrap it up and they can always come back and use it again. Our switch light is cataloged as a YA item because it was purchased with teen funds. The I type is reference / non-circulating miscellaneous. Libraries in our system who do circulate consoles typically use equipment or library of things as the I type. We also have a pop-up note that comes up that reminds staff to change the due date to today because we don't want it going out of the building, and to double check the contents of the kit before it goes out and when it comes back in. So we keep all of the tech use, the blank tech use slips in a binder. And on that binder and on the kit box, there's a list of everything included as well as a picture so people can visually see what is what, especially if a staff member is not checking it out often or somebody new has never used a device. They can be like, okay, this is the charger, this is this is that. Our kit contains the console, obviously, a charger, a case, 2 physical games. I'm hoping to add more as time goes on, 2 sets of headphones, and an audio splitter. We are requiring people to use headphones while they play. They can use theirs or the ones we provide to help prevent some of those sound disturbances that libraries had talked about before when I messaged with them. And we've included the audio splitter so 2 people can listen at the same time. So if we've got 2 friends playing or a parent and a child, we can really encourage that relationship building and the communication and the play. And users are also welcome to borrow any of the Switch games that we have in our collection as well. We do have a staff best practices guide stored with that tech use binder. And we keep it all housed behind the circulation desk for security purposes. And based on our building, it's also just the more efficient and centralized location for all staff to easily get access to it for patrons. So our Switch Lite kit went live just a few months ago, I think just shy of 2 months, and it's already been checked out about 5 times. I haven't posted anything about it on social media, kind of a soft start while we get the handle of things. So I think that's pretty cool, 5 times without advertising it out at all. And I know a couple families have used it at least 2 or 3 times too. Down the road, I do want to get another Switch Lite kit so that way multiple people can play at the same time. And after all that, I'm going to pass it on to Jamie and you can hear from him again.
Yeah, updates and patches. Obviously, this is something that's become commonplace, not just in gaming, just in life in general. Pretty much every device we have needs updates. Problems come up that developers push out an update to help address. Consoles are no different, and that, especially to our computers, phones, and tablets, and having updates to address bug issues and/or introduce new features. So the library can help with this. And this is something that kind of just unexpectedly happened to me several years ago where patron came in, had their console, they needed to either update the console or a game, can't remember exactly what, but something to that effect, and was like, I don't have good internet outside of town. Would I be able to connect to your internet and do the update? I'm like, sure, let's do it. So I put him in our meeting room where we happened to have a TV that was on a cart there, plugged it in, said, here you go, do your thing. And worked great for him. Took a while, but it worked great. And I can see this just being a really good service to provide. All you really need is some space and a TV or monitor that has an HDMI port. Booking, we use Google Calendar for our meeting room, something to that effect to help organize these bookings and such. I think the biggest consideration to take into account here is your bandwidth. We had about 20 megabits per second when this happened. We're up to 100 now. And just looking at like updates of, seeing how long it would take for an update based on that bandwidth, like 40 gigs would probably be about 5 hours for us. I think it was something smaller than that, but it definitely took like a couple hours just because it wasn't very fast. And you want to take that in consideration in terms of all the other people in your library, or even just, affects your check-in, check-out sort of stuff. So yeah, something we can possibly offer to help out in this respect. Next slide, please, which I think is still me. Yeah, drop-in gaming and consoles. So for us in Clintonville, in our teen area, we have a couple, a Wii and an Xbox 360 in our teen area that are just always available for people to play on. We have a small selection of games that are next to the consoles. These are in libraries only, so these aren't things that get checked out. We do allow some games from the regular collection to come over, but we kind of try to say like, hey, just teen and under sort of thing. We don't want to have the mature rated games. For checkout, the patron has to come up to the front desk and provide either a library card, ID, or for school kids, if they have their school ID, if they can provide that, we'll take that and give them whatever respective controllers that they need. With these being some older consoles, they do have some issues from time to time, and it's helpful when you have people that are more mechanically minded who are willing to take apart and are able to put back together things in case of like a disc being stuck in our Wii that happened a while ago. Take it apart, be able to pull that out, and then put it back together. Eventually, we will be getting a PlayStation 4 donated, so hopefully that will replace our Xbox 360 and just expand our options there. And then the next slide is going to highlight our locking cases. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just say, as you switch, there's a question about how do you switch out games since there are locking cases.
Yeah. There's a spot in the front, as you can kind of see in the pictures, that allows them to be able to access the disk drives and such. So yeah, which for the Xbox 360 is pretty nice because it's pretty open there. The Wii one is a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit harder to use. I've kind of unlocked that one just because it's a little bit easier to kind of maneuver that way, so that discs can easily get in and out, and it's easier to access the buttons on the front. But these cases I got from Acrylic Megastore, which was on Amazon. They don't sell these particular ones anymore, but they do have ones for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and hopefully, one of those cases can maybe work for a different console as well. Next slide, which I think send it back to Jenna.
Thank you. So a major part of my job is teen programming and helping out with youth programming. And whenever I plan anything, I like to keep inclusion and connections at the forefront. So this could look like connecting with others, with oneself, and or learning through play, and play for all ages. Adults should play too. Providing opportunities for teens to build community with one another is also very important to me. So programming around video games seems to be made for relationship building and making connections. Our next section is all about programming with video games, what we've done in the past, what we're inspired by, and what we can try out. We're going to go over a lot in a short amount of time, so I welcome you to come back to our slides to read further and reach out if you want additional details. If you can listen and type at the same time, I welcome you to toss out a brief sentence about any video game related program that you've tried or you've wanted to try, and then we can all learn from one another as well. And chances are Jamie or I might touch on at least one of those programs you've mentioned. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here's a list that you can come back to if you're looking for inspiration, not just for programs, but also for your own video game collection. It's our top game checkouts from 2024. Lists like these can help me find trends and what's popular. Most of us kind of already do this for programming with our books, if we've got book clubs or author visits. So you can also do this with your video games. Next slide, please. Here's some pictures and marketing items from some of our programs we've done in the past. I'll be sharing about some of these, including our Switch It Up program. International Games Month, I saw George dropped a link at the beginning of our presentation about that. That's in November. Up in the top corner, the blue and black picture with my selfie. I purchased some floor seating in our teen area that makes it easier for teens to lounge and game and hang out. Down in the bottom corner is a breakout box. I offer that very frequently. I come up with clues and then they solve them and open up the box. And I've done a games related one for that. We've done Minecraft programs and then rubber duck cosplay as well. Next slide, please. So here at Chippewa, like I said, we've hosted a number of programs over the years and many of them offline. They do not include very much or any tech at all, which is great for those of us who are not gamers or very tech savvy. One of our most popular games for youth and teens is Minecraft. If you have spent any time with any child, you have probably heard about Minecraft. A few years ago, we had a Minecraft party for elementary and middle schoolers. And this summer, I'll be doing a drop-in version of a Minecraft party. We're going to have creeper windsocks and building challenges with like 5 different types of building blocks, including magnet tiles and some other activities as well. So we won't be playing the actual game, but we'll be doing related activities to it. Last year, I borrowed an idea from another librarian, which is rubber duck cosplay. So it's like cosplaying yourself, but in miniature. They were given up to 3 ducks, and then they could use various supplies like felt, clay, glitter glue, popsicle sticks. I had a whole slew of stuff. And they could transform their ducks into a popular game character or a book character or a movie character. And it was also a great way to get rid of some of the random bits and bobs that were left over from other programs as well. It was so popular, I'm going to do it again this summer, but this time with Matchbox cars instead of rubber ducks. We'll see how that goes. I'm also working on inviting gamers, game designers, and esports players or coaches to either come to the library in person or virtually. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I'm still chatting with a bunch of folks. It could be a series of events during November, which is International Games Month. It could be a presentation, a chat, a demo. It's still in the works, but everyone I've communicated with has been super on board. If they don't think they're a right fit, they've been like, here, it's 12 people that you can reach out to, and they've all been excited as well. And it's also going to be very low tech for me because they'll be able to handle everything and I won't have to deal with it. From other libraries, there are so many things I want to try. For time's sake, I'm not going to go over them, but I do want to point out the last bullet point. The 3 of us recently attended Game RT's video game online conference, which was fantastic. And there was lots of interesting presentations, including one about gamifying your life and gamifying your goals. ALA will have that on their YouTube channel in the next couple of months, so watch out for that. They also have other really helpful stuff on their YouTube channel as well. Next slide, please. And now for some more techie virtual ideas. I mentioned the gamers and esports teams coming in. We've also hosted a Switch game program for tweens and teens about 5 or 6 times now. I borrow a whole bunch of Switch games from our system and I have ours out and a whole bunch of snacks and they just come in and they get to try them out and test them out. And it is so fun watching these kids play and help each other out. And, oh, I love this game. I think you might love it too. I've never tried this. And watching them, share contact information or, hey, you should come over to my house. Oh, it just makes my heart so happy. And we've had anywhere from 2 to 10 kids show up. So that's really great too for our small town. You can find lots of great online resources and games that you can play on a PC or a tablet, including PBS Kids. So explore those as you wish. Make sure you play the games yourself before presenting them, though. You don't want it to run into any bugs during the game or anything kind of iffy, because that would not be good. There are lots of options that I want to try out or that I've suggested to our adult services team to try. I don't have time to go through them all, so please come on back or reach out. And you guys have been sharing some really great ideas. I can't wait to read through some of those. There are resources available to seniors, community organizations, individuals, and schools for adaptable and assistive tech. I really encourage you to educate yourself on them if you're not familiar with them. And you can see how you can either get information out to your community members about them or even have them in your building itself. If you have any adaptable tech or assistive tech in your building or in your collection, pop it in the chat because I want to hear what you guys have as well. So reach out to your local schools, your organizations, group homes to see if they are open to collaborating on virtual or in-person game-related events. Make sure to plan ahead well in advance so you can have that adaptable or assistive tech whenever necessary. Next slide, please. I'm getting all my stuff out at once, and then I'm going to pass it on to Jamie. I'm almost done, I promise. Your video game collection and consoles are also really great tools to connect with other library materials and services that you can offer your patrons. For example, last fall, I started creating young adult book lists that appeal to different game genres, gameplay styles, types of video games. And I keep that in a binder upstairs, and I also have it on our Biblio Commons account. And I'm kind of anal retentive. Whenever I go upstairs, I have to close that binder. I don't like it when it's just hanging open for some reason. But often when it's hanging open, it is open to one of those games. So I like to think it's getting used and looked at. You can create shelf talkers and displays that include games and game-related materials. And I do again, even though I just talked about it, I want to make sure again to touch on inclusion. Wisconsin has a lending library that includes those assistive tech and tech-related items. Your state or maybe even your county hopefully has something similar, so look into that. If you have an aging and disabilities resource, they might be a really great organization to reach out to first. So how can you disseminate that information or borrow items? Here in Chippewa, we do have a large keyed keyboard with really large letters and really large keys on them. If I was in a bigger system, I definitely want to purchase more items or even pursue reaching out to companies who make the products to see if maybe we can test them out or have demo days or different opportunities for folks to try them out without having to spend a lot of money. Chris has lots of really great information about all of this as well. Reach out to him and then also go to the links page at the very end. And then also think about what you can add to your library of things that can boost up your consoles or other tech-related things that can bridge that tech and economic divide. And then you can also reach your seasoned, your new, and your potential gamers. Maybe you can have hotspots or Wii accessories or anything like that. All right, I'm all done. It's Jamie's turn again. Thanks for listening.
I was just going to highlight just a few of the video game programmings that we've done here in Clintonville. One of, we did a couple of tournaments this last summer. We've done them other times, but this last summer they worked out really well for us. First one was a Mario Kart tournament where every kid that came in basically gave me their name, made a bracket for everybody, and started playing basically at a big projected screen. It was a tournament style, so one loss means you're out sort of thing. I used the versus mode within Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So there's just 4 racers, no CPU players, and the top 2 racers from each race moved on to the next round. I selected all the courses between each one, so it was kind of a bit of a surprise of like, oh, what's going to be next, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, it came down to 2 racers head-to-head, and it worked out really well. I think the hardest part was just making the bracket, especially since there was an odd number of participants. Super Smash Brothers, we did a tournament for that last summer using Ultimate on the Switch. Has a built-in tournament mode within the game. I know that the Smash community doesn't really use this, but it worked really well for us in that I knew how to use it, the kids knew how to use it. It was just so simple, just set up real quick. With 20 plus kids, even going 1v1, those tournaments went super fast. So you might want to do a few tournaments to, help people feel like they got a chance to play and such. And really see who the real winner is and such. For prizes for the Mario Kart tournament, I believe it was just like a grab bag of some stuff of like bookmarks, candy, books, that sort of stuff. But for Super Smash Brothers, we gave away tickets to our local aqua park, which we've kind of redone our pool sort of area here in town. And so this new aqua park was open last summer. So it was a real kind of great synergy with our Parks and Rec department to kind of get interest going for that. Yeah, worked out really well. One of the things to highlight in terms of tournaments is they're going to bring out a lot of different type of people, and I mean that in the sense of like the people who have mastered every game, capital G gamer sort of person, and the people who play games but maybe aren't familiar with Super Smash Brothers or maybe only play a little bit of Mario Kart. So you're going to get kind of like a wide swath of people, and just to kind of be prepared for that, so that you're able to communicate that out and help those people out that maybe need a little bit extra help to jump in and such compared to the people who already know what they're doing. Besides those tournaments, weekly we provide, especially I think during the school year, we have weekly game nights where the Nintendo Switch comes out into the teen area, and the highlight there is Super Smash Brothers, in that they get pretty riled up playing that game. There's a variety of other games, and of course the big part for that thing is snacks. As we all know, snacks are really helpful to get people into programming. And the next few slides are just some pictures of some of those programs. The next one is our Mario Kart tournament along with the poster. And the following one after that is our Super Smash Brothers tournament.
Sorry, Jamie.
So yeah, no, it's all right. There's our Mario Kart tournaments, the projected screen, their meeting room, the poster. Next one there is just our Super Smash Brothers one, along with the poster again. And then the last one is just a few pictures from our weekly game night. So, and I will pass it back to Chris.
Thank you so much, Jenna and Jamie. As y'all can hear and see here, they're the working librarians that are really doing the work with their communities in this space. I'm at a place now where I'm working with our state education agency where I miss doing all the in-person programs with all of our amazing community members, but I get to work on some other cool, maybe broader national projects in the kind of games and library space and start collaborating with all sorts of peers nationally on other things that we want to keep working on, hopefully so that librarians can keep being librarians and do the dang work, and then we can hopefully find some solutions for some of these challenges that we might be anticipating when it comes to games and libraries in the next 5 to 10 years. I'll try to keep this pretty short so we have some time for questioning. I see we're already at almost 10:45. If you had seen my presentation at the ALA Game Marquee's March MiniCon, Video Games and Libraries, this is going to be very similar. Although, as anybody who knows that has been paying attention to things happening federally, there has been a lot of uncertainty. And so because of that, it's kind of always a moving target. So consider this part of the presentation might be like a fossil preserved in amber. If you revisit this in 5 months, 2 months, or a year, or something like that. But hopefully it'll still be valuable information to set the scene for where we are at as of this moment and where we want to keep heading moving to the future. So this is all about digital-only video games and libraries working toward a long-term borrowing solution. So where things are at right now, right? As Jenna mentioned, of course, the reminder, data overwhelmingly suggests that video games are the most popular entertainment medium on the planet by a wide margin, totally encompassing and shrouding, even film and audiobooks and this kind of stuff too. In fact, at this point, the ESA's recent statistics suggest, the Entertainment Software Association's recent statistics suggest that as many as 60% of the US population identify as gamers or play video games weekly. What we do know too is that with each console generation, games have been moving more and more towards digital-only offerings. I think it is extremely likely that in the next couple of console cycles, perhaps even the next PlayStation, the next Xbox, whatever that ends up being, it will only be a digital option. You won't be able to purchase discs or cartridges for those that you would be able to, for example, as a librarian, buy from a store, tag in your library space, put on a shelf, and allow for recurring circulation. Excuse me. In fact, in 2023, it was reported that only 10.5% of games sold in the previous year were physical copies, while roughly 90% were digital downloads. So that just goes to show you the trend and where we're going to be headed. The problem is, We don't have any type of good digital games borrowing platform, app, subscription model, or anything that a library can utilize to allow patrons to use their library cards to check out, download, install, play, and then check back in video games. What does this mean for us? Well, we're seeing more gamers each year. So if we have more gamers each year and a lack of access to digital games through libraries and no way to access digital games in libraries, that is simply going to be a serious media cultural gap for any library users of the future. And this is something I'm very passionate about because I know we also don't have good professional library training about video games or games-based collections and programs in iSchools and in MLISs throughout the nation. We need more of that. We need more librarians offering more video games and actively and vocally working towards a successful or a solution for this problem that we know is going to be coming to us in the next 4 to 5 years. Point is, libraries need a sustainable digital video games borrowing solution ASAP, and that could take many forms, right? I think it's also important to acknowledge that access and preservation are equally important, but they represent different considerations and needs. So there's a big Venn diagram, right? Of like what I'm talking about over on the left-hand side for me is access. I want to make sure that digital video games can be accessible to library or to users so they can play the newest, hottest games, the oldest, greatest games, whatever, by using their library card, downloading and playing, right? But preservation is really important too. And we in the library world, we know as information science professionals that archiving and cultural preservation of these materials is crucial for our long-term cultural sustainability of games and the gaming history. Unfortunately, in 2024, the US Copyright Office announced that they would not grant an exemption to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act in support of video game presentation. That was something that the Video Game History Foundation was pursuing. And why is that a problem? Well, a 2023 study by the Video Game History Foundation found that 9 out of 10 classic games are critically endangered and unavailable in the modern gaming market. Only about 13% of games released before 2010 are still commercially available and playable on modern platforms, meaning a large portion of classic games are effectively lost to time. What about finding a new Shakespeare play that we thought was lost to time and now we have it and we think, wow, this is amazing cultural significance, right? This is not dissimilar to this idea of losing these artifacts of culture, history, knowledge, and it's a real problem. So we have people that are both working on the access piece as well as people that are working on the cultural archiving and preservation piece. And again, big Venn diagram that overlaps that, right? Are there benefits to digital only games versus physical copies? Yeah, there are some. I'll let folks read over this. It's complicated, but ultimately there are differences between, for example, cloud gaming as a potential digital game solution, which would be playing directly from remote servers, which wouldn't require a patron necessarily to have expensive hardware or storage space. But there's also the traditional digital game download, which is like the way that Jamie and I do it right now with PlayStation, where we purchase it from the PlayStation Store, we download it locally to our console, install it, play it, and then whatever happens with that, right? So there's potentially a cloud gaming solution, potentially a digital game download solution. That could be, it does afford some benefits because technically speaking, as long as a steady broadband connection, big asterisk there, is available, a user should be able to connect to cloud gaming anywhere in the world, right? There could be benefits of purchasing from a sole source. It can make tax exemption, record retention, offering different payment methods really easy, especially if there was a subscription model that a library, for example, accessed. Subscription models have benefits for users in the sense that they could get access to huge catalogs of games and really pick and choose at their leisure. And most importantly, from a library operations perspective, I think a digital borrowing platform or subscription model, cloud gaming or digital game download, either way, could make it very streamlined in terms of a circulation experience for patrons, right? Automatic checkouts, holds filled, auto check-ins, the same things that we experience already with Libby, Overdrive, Hoopla, Flipster, this type of thing, right? But there are definitely challenges and barriers to digital only games. The biggest one, I think, is the digital divide, as many folks have highlighted here. According to the FCC's 2024 Communications Marketplace report, more than a third of Americans have access to only one or even no broadband providers. And in rural areas, broadband internet is really, really rough. So it's going to be really hard to do this unless we also are simultaneously tackling the broadband digital divide issue, right? Lag and latency could make for a really unpleasant gaming experience. Subscription models, as we know, are prohibitively costly for libraries. Hoopla is, I don't want to call anyone out specifically, but Hoopla we know is not tenable for many libraries to offer. So they're not even going to pursue that. Currently, it's hard to do tax exemption through PlayStation Store, Steam, this kind of stuff. So with these current single solution or individual platforms, there's some challenges there. We need to work with them on that. And then the most important and the hardest one is going to be licensing, account access, and management of if we had some sort of solution we created when it came to digital games borrowing. These are called entitlements, and they're essentially the controls who has user access rights within a system, especially related to things like licensing. And that's a real complicated issue that I would need much smarter people at the table with to help than me. So there's a lot of work that's kind of currently being done surrounding access and preservation, as well as trying to identify and ideate on a solution to digital games borrowing. I've got a list of some on the left there. I'll go over all of those. Of course, the ALA Games and Gaming Roundtable is just always a great resource. I want to highlight that red asterisk by work currently being done, which harkens back to the idea of things being a little bit of a moving target with federal funding right now. So we'll get to that in a minute. But independent of the sort of segmented individual projects or communities of practice that are being built and people that are trying to work on this stuff throughout the nation, on the left-hand side of this, who else needs to be at the table? Well, we need lots of library leaders. That means all of y'all here, as well as other people that you know. We need librarians informing this process, working librarians. We obviously would benefit from contacts at e-borrowing platforms, which whether those are already in the library world, like Overdrive, Libby, Flipster, Canopy, admins and managers potentially of digital game libraries and purchasing platforms, folks from GOG, itch.io, Humble Bundle, PlayStation Store. I mean, we just want to have these people in the room if they are interested to be able to help us work on the solution. Obviously, game developers and publishers, we want to protect the intellectual property and the compensation that they need to get as publishers and developers. I want gamers and game developers to thrive. Lots of other industry leaders, folks who run regional conferences, workshops, game jams, academics and scholars, university leaders, those types of folks, experts in digital infrastructure, licensing, entitlements, and legal work. That's a big one, and much more, right? So I'm just going to give a high-level overview of some of the projects that are currently being done in this space, and I would encourage everybody to go and research these, look into them, and pay attention if you're interested. Always that big red asterisk on the next few slides for all of these projects is related to uncertainty with federal funding, although as of right now, we have learned that our personal project, which I'll be getting to in a minute, has been reinstated, and I'm going to be able to keep working on that, which is awesome. So I'm hoping that my buddies Lane and then my buddy Colin also are going to be able to continue working on their project. But Lane is essentially working with the Gamer Group at University of Washington iSchool on access and preservation of games. The deliverables for that project include a comprehensive list of games with metadata and accessibility information, best practice guide for navigating game accessibility issues, and publications reporting research findings. So if preservation, archiving, and access in this frame is interesting to you, consider looking more into this project and consider connecting with Lane. One of our awesome colleagues in the Game RT world, Colin Post, is one of his projects, which was a fiscal year 2024 IMLS grant-funded project, just like Lane's and just like mine, is about digital games and libraries. So they had completed exploratory research this past winter, spring, where they did 40 interviews in total. They're coding the research to identify themes, and eventually they want to do a blog post or something that's an informal piece of writing just talking about what they've discovered in terms of solutions towards digital games and libraries. The hope being that we'll eventually have a national virtual forum in October, maybe, where we can bring all these people together and start really working in working groups on these types of solutions. I say we, I'm not affiliated with this project at all, other than that I know Colin and I'm working on similar stuff. So when I say we, I just mean the collective group of us that are trying to come up with a solution for this. And then finally, this is the one that I am working on myself and Washington State Library. We are the kind of co-PIs on this. It's called the National Games and Libraries Project. Again, a fiscal year 2024 funded project. It'll be 3 years to be completed in August 2027. The main deliverable of it will be a really robust games-based library services toolkit that will be replicable and scalable for all sorts of libraries, library consortia, state libraries of different sizes, of how do you roll out things like grant projects, games-based programs, games-based professional development and CE. How do you get folks all across the nation better at putting games into their libraries? Because there isn't a lot of professional library training surrounding this right now in ILS, MLIS degrees. But the thing I really want to highlight is this what's highlighted in green here. The first year, which we're just going to be kicking off now again soon, now that we learned that our grant was reinstated, was we're conducting really, really robust nationwide research and a rigorous literature review of past and current games-based library services. This will culminate in the development of a paper and research report. Now, the reason why I want to highlight that is because I've talked with the creative director at Amazon Luna. I've got some good connections at GOG right now. I have talked to many regional game development conference hosts. What they all need is data around how many uses games get in libraries. Like, game developers want to get more eyes on their products, and people that are in charge of these spaces want more access to their stuff, especially if they'll get more eyes on their products or make them more money. But the issue is we need to show them that it would be of value to them. So we need to do really great nationwide research to say, this is what checkouts of games and libraries look like. So this is why you should be excited about it, game developer. That's the thing that I'm most passionate about doing in the next coming months. This is just a little visualization of what our project is going to be looking like. And we're sort of still in phase one, re-kicking it off now. And I would be remiss not to also highlight some of the other outstanding organizations that are doing a lot of work in the archiving, preservation, and access place. This is just some of them. There are so many more. This is why I really want to bring people together to create things that are less segmented. But the Video Game History Foundation, the European Federation of Games, Archives, Museums, and Preservation projects, FGAMP. Also, GOG has got their GOG preservation program, where they're really trying to work on preservation and access. And then finally, the Strong National Museum of Play also has some excellent projects that you can check out at any of these links to learn more about some of the work that's being done in this space. And if you want to get involved and you want to help us with any of this, please, I've got two forms here. The one on the left is really more about if you want to be involved in some sort of ideating, project groups, whatever, related to let's try to figure out how to do the digital games in libraries solution. What does a platformer app look like? And then the right form is for that first phase one of my grant project with Washington State that we mentioned about helping us with games-based library services, research, data, and a lit review, if you're interested. Here's all of a bunch of links to some of the cool stuff we talked about. And thank you so much. If you have any questions, we only have a few minutes. I'm sorry, there's just so much we keep trying to cram into these, but that's the end of our presentation today. And please stay in contact with us, reach out to us, and yeah, let us know if there's anything else we can help with.
Great. That was really informative, guys. So far, the only question in chat, which a couple people are kind of engaging with, is it worth exploring something with MAME, M-A-M-E? It's an emulation software trying to preserve game history. I'm unaware how it would fit into the libraries in a legal sense.
I mean, that's a great question. When I think of MAME, I think of the, I think I shouldn't even say his name. I think of the famous Donkey Kong player who got into some challenges for accusations of using MAME versus a actual arcade cabinet. I'm not exactly familiar with like the legalese of MAME and how that might. I mean, my understanding of emulators and ROMs, which are the actual like game itself. So you have an emulator on your computer where you can play PlayStation games. The ROM is the game that you can play with an emulator. My understanding of it, generally speaking, is that unless it's an officially licensed product like Nintendo's all-in-one NES or whatever, you have to own a personal copy of the game to legally be able to download for free an emulator and a ROM to play that game. So I don't know exactly how MAME fits into that, but I believe that the general expectation is that if you want to use an emulator and a ROM on your home computer or whatever of Dark Souls 2, the legal expectation is that you have a purchased copy of Dark Souls 2 to be able before you can do that. And if you don't, that you could be legally liable for theft, essentially, or piracy. But again, I'm not a lawyer, and this is exactly why I think we need so many people at this table to help navigate these things.
Great, thanks. So if there are any more questions, feel free to dump them in chat. Because we are running short on time, I will just email the LEU to everyone. Even if you don't need one, you can just delete it if you don't need it. And if there are more questions, again, you can put them in chat. If these three can stick around, then they can help us. If not, I'll email the questions to them afterwards and get the responses to you all with the recording and the slides and all the other great materials. So with that, I want to thank our presenters one more time. I want to thank you all for being here. If you've got to go, we understand. If you want to hang out for a few more minutes, I'll be here. Other than that, have a great day, everyone.